I know all of us hate to go through that bid and RFP process. I run the 7th largest school division in the state of Virginia there in Chesapeake outside of Virginia Beach. So I was looking at ways to really move some things forward and move them forward quickly. My superintendent, we were using ESSER funds left and right, doing a lot of creative things for COVID during the time. And then he came to me and said, I need this like now. He goes, whatever it takes, I need you to get it, and I want you to get it quickly. So I've, over the years, built many relationships with many of you here in the K12 Facility Forum, and I absolutely love this event. I come every year, I meet a lot of new people, and I've built a lot of relationships with the business sponsors and attendees, etc. So a few years ago, I met Cheryl Aquadro and Shannon Frankenberger Allen from Johnson Controls. Cheryl, I met you way back when, maybe San Diego, and Shannon, we reconnected in Palm Springs and then back in San Diego. So I do a lot of business with Johnson Controls in my local region, but I had good relationships with both of them. So when my superintendent said now, I went ahead and called Shannon, because we've been friends for a while, and I said, I need this, can you help me? And I've got to get it done quick. He wants this done quick. We're getting a lot of questions at school board meetings on indoor air quality and our filter changes and PMs on our equipment. And she said, let me make a phone call. So she made a phone call to their cooperative purchasing agent in their division, and we found out that they had a cooperative through Sourcewell. And that's where Liz and I began a relationship of other resources and things like that. And before you know it, I was like, okay, we can do this. So I called my procurement agent in our school division, because I'm going to tell you, where I'm at, it is so old school. It takes an act of Congress to ride something. It takes us forever to do an RFP, because the way we do it, we put it out on the street, we select 4 or 5 vendors, then we shortlist the vendors, then we interview the vendors, and then we take the process, they negotiate for pricing, and then it goes to the school board for approval. And I'm like, I don't have 3 months to do this. So once Shannon and Liz and Johnson Controls and Sourcewell hooked up, it was that easy. So I called my procurement office and say, hey, we've got a contract through Sourcewell that JCI can help us with, and I can get this stuff now. Can we use it? And so the next thing I know, my procurement officer is calling me saying, yes, you can use it, get a quote, you'll be on the school board docket in 3 weeks. So I did a multi-million-dollar contract, multi-million-dollar in a 3-year phase, and we're in year 1 now, for all my filter changes. I had a company that was just gosh awful, and depending on philosophies and what you do in your schools, we consistently are changing our filters, not every 3 months, almost every 2 months, and then PMing our equipment. So we're meeting the ASHRAE standards for indoor air quality and indoor intake and all those things, but I had to have this done now, because the company I had, they quit. They were like midstream, they lost employees, and I could not get this done. So it was a seamless process from A to B. And now I'm calling Liz and even talking to Shannon about other opportunities. And I call Liz to say, do you guys have a contract for blinds and lockers and other things like that? And it's going to make life easier. So if you haven't used a cooperative before, I can tell you it's an easy process. Simply as getting the information vetted, finding out if there's a contract, and then presenting it to your procurement office. You know, there are some school divisions, because I get to travel around the country a little bit, because I'm also the CEO and executive director for the National School Plant Management Association. So I hear different things from different people about, well, you know, this is not going to fly. We're still going to bid this out. So you may face that. But in my situation, I think many of the situations some of you may get into, depending where you're at, it will be easy for you to do and make things a lot simpler and a lot more faster and efficient. I don't have time to mess around with stuff. If my superintendent says we need it, I'm going to do it and get it done. So that's in a nutshell.
John, thank you. So I think you said it all. You'll notice the process, though, the anatomy of what John just talked about. He didn't call Sourcewell. He went to the supplier he wanted to do business with, right? So that's the first decision you all have to make. Who do I want? And then secondly, after I've decided who it is I want, how in the world am I going to get them, right? Because the difference between you and the corporate sector is they can just pull the trigger. But you have to go to Helen in procurement, right? Some of you have a Helen. She's been doing it 26 and a half years. She's got that bun with the leather thing with the wood stick through it. And she says, this is all about compliance. I don't think you can fight that. You have to embrace that. I was on a call this morning in New York. Everything in New York over $20,000 has to be bid. We can't make the law change. I can't make that go away. But what we can do using cooperative purchasing is we can satisfy that bid requirement. And I think, John, that's what you were talking about, right? I know who I want. I know I can actually, in this case, pick the supplier I want to pick. Has anyone ever been subject to a bid and you got the low bid imposter, the person who can't perform? Happens every day, doesn't it? And what happens? I have people, I was speaking last week in San Diego, and I had somebody come up to me and say, hey, Dave, I can't get people to respond to my bid. I said, it's a 36-page RFP for a $100,000 purchase. You really think they're going to take the time to do that when they know someone else is going to come in, drop their pants, buy the business, and then not be able to perform? So don't make this harder than it is. We're just a choice, right? As well as a state contract or another contract that you can piggyback on. But that is super, super important. And remember, when you go to procurement, procurement can only say three things: yes, no, or maybe. So, John, what happens now when you go to procurement? Can I use Sourcewell? Sure. Yes. You sure you're getting a decent deal? Have you benchmarked the pricing? Are you sure they can perform? Do we need any additional terms and conditions? If they say no or maybe, and 99 out of 100 times, JCI is not the problem, we're the problem. I've never heard of Source Good. Who are they? Well, you can at least get our name right. But there's lots and lots of people. We find lots of organizations are very siloed. We met with somebody this morning and said, I've never heard of you. And he said, well, you guys bought $8 million off our contracts in the last 6 or 7 years. So it's about education. Well, I don't know if that'll be in client. Who is Sourcewell? What do you mean they're a government agency in Minnesota? I'm in New York. We can help with all of that. So what do? We bring together buyers and sellers. Last week, one of those people at that conference said, Dave, after a couple glasses of wine, she said, you know why we use your contracts? I get to pick the supplier, but I get to do it in a compliant way. That's the supplier I want. The price is great, but now I can pull it, and I don't have to talk to all those other suppliers. I can get the people I want that I know I can trust and that can actually perform. So we create efficiencies on the cost side and on the savings side. Liz, I think one of the people we met with this morning says $7,000, $8,000 to do a bid, right? And all the man hours. Yeah, I just mentioned New York. You know how long it takes the state of New York to do a bid? 18 months. They're way out there. But for most of you, it's at least a few months. So how does this work? Don't forget, we don't skip anything. We don't avoid anything. We did a bid just like you would do a bid. We nationally advertised it. The bids came in sealed. They were time and date stamped. We can't ignore any of those steps on the compliance side. It's, in effect, what you just did is outsource that to us, so you don't have to do it. So all those steps are taken care of by Sourcewell, and then we turn around and say, John, literally, you can cut the PO today, right? Now, the board held you up for 3 weeks. That's on them. But that's how quickly things can happen. During the pandemic, people said, you know, hey, I don't know if you know this, but nowhere did it say you can skip your procurement rules, right? Emergencies last, 30, 60 days? Not for 9 months. So what happens? They had to find a way to get things and get it now. So let's talk about the kind of things we have. At Sourcewell, we have 400 plus contracts. You want to do construction? We've awarded Gordian. You want to do HVAC? You want to do fields, lighting, track, bleachers, office furniture, school buses? We have it all. And you know where those ideas came from? They came from you. We didn't always have school buses till schools came up and said, do you guys have a contract for school buses? No, do you think we should? Yeah. So that's why we got where we are. Because it was the voice of the customer saying, Dave, do you have a contract for? And we looked at it and said, is there a need? Is there an unmet need? And can we bring value? And let me give you an example of a failure. We've never been able to successfully bid or solicit garbage. All the garbage haulers, we don't need a contract. Matter of fact, most of us are in collusion. We kind of pick our spots, we charge whatever the market will bear. Why would we want to be locked into your pricing? So there are some areas we just couldn't bring value because suppliers wouldn't respond to that. So what we're trying to do is say, tell us why you need our help in doing this, and we can go out with that volume and talk to the best suppliers in the industry. And the suppliers that don't have a contract with one of the co-ops is trying to get one, okay? They're all seeing this as a vehicle. In our organization alone last year, 40,000 agencies bought $5 billion of goods and services. Those were bids that never hit the street because they just said, this is the right way to go. I can pull my trigger. And listen, I only have 400 contracts. I cannot solve every one of your problems. I can't. There are going to be things we just don't have contracts for that you're going to have to bid anyway. So we just want you to know we're big in technology. We're big in green. We were talking this morning about vehicles. We have CNG, we have propane. But you know the big deal is EV, right? Electric vehicles. That's a lot sexier than CNG and propane. That's okay. Anybody have somebody that says they want to be smart or a 5G world? They have no idea what it means. They just know they want to be because that's cool, right? You say, well, do you know the infrastructure that takes, especially in an existing building? So those are all things that we can help you with. And remember, we're just a choice. You don't ever have to use us. You use us because you want to. The other thing we've brought to the table that's been incredibly invaluable is our leasing program. We actually went out and nationally bid leasing. And we have a leasing supplier that it's already been competitively bid. And number two, it's a tax-free municipal lease. Now, if anybody knows what a tax-free municipal lease is, it's got a non-appropriations clause, which means all your lease payments don't have to come out of your capital budget. They can come out of your operating budget. So during the pandemic, we had people said, I need 2,800 laptops. Great. I said, but I don't have any money. Well, that's okay. We'll get you the 2,800 laptops. You can lease them for 2 or 3 years using NCL. And then we turn around and say, oh, and by the way, we'll make your first payment 12 months from now, which is in the next fiscal year. So you got time to pay for them. So you think about some of those infrastructure projects, and you heard some of that this morning. How in the world am I going to pay for it? We can spread out that cost over the whole life cycle of the asset. All right, so with that, Liz?
Thank you. All right, so now you heard a little bit about our program. I will tell you, I did take the opportunity and looked up all of your school districts prior to coming to the conference, and I think all but one of you has a registered account already with Sourcewell. So hopefully your purchasing offices are already aware of Sourcewell and have taken advantage of the cooperative purchasing program when the need was right. And so if you want to just find me, you don't need to do anything that it says here on here because you do have a registered account. If you do want to receive award announcements, I can take your email so that you'll see all of our new awards that are coming out, and then I can brief you on how you can look at our contract catalog if you want to. So just find me later if you're interested in that. And thank you for the opportunity to let us speak with you today about our program.